know, it is so crazy that every time that I've gotten an emotional healing, it is
Mhm.
followed by a physical. So talk a
Mhm.
little bit about that layer of trauma and release of that.
What I learned throughout the process is that when the Lord asks you to heal, it's almost like saying yes takes the skin off, and then, and then he starts peeling it layer by layer. And I found that very rarely with different and there's different onions even. It's not like just one onion. It's each onion's its own subject. But very
Yep.
rarely does he cut it straight down the center and pull the root out. Very
Right.
rarely. Because, a lot of times we need to process whatever it is that is going on. Like if I could choose anger and bitterness, those roots are deep in you. And
Yeah.
if you were to pull them all out at once, I think it would potentially even physically hurt us because we carry the weight of whatever it is. Like the anger would always manifest right here for me. And as I slowly released the anger, the physical manifestation was a lot less. What's the word for it? It wasn't as pronounced, I guess is the word for it. And then, once you finally forgive and finally release and finally are able to get it all out, you do feel better. You physically feel better. You mentally feel better. You go through the mind renewal. It's just like it's so intertwined between
Yes.
physical, spirit, and our emotions and thoughts that, and the other thing I always like to say about the onions is as you peel the layers off, you are most likely going to cry.
Right.
It's just the way that it works. Whenever you cut an onion, the gas makes you cry, and whenever you have stuffed emotions, when they come up, most likely you are going to cry. So that's just kind
So
of
true.
how healing works. It's just turning and facing whatever it is you're going through and dealing with it because we just hide it and stuff it and shove it away. And we're like, nope, not going to deal with you today. It's talk to the hand kind of situation. And, we just need to turn, like I said, turn and face it and say, I'm going to deal with you today and, you know, get it gone.
Yeah,
Let the
absolutely.
Lord drag it off the chains that chained you up in. So,
So true, so true. And the onion layers, some are really thick and they take a little longer, and some are really thin and they just come off real
mhm,
easy. And I love the fact that you mentioned, we are spirit, soul, and body. And
mhm,
so, we've everything it is intertwined. And so many times people do not realize that the physical aspect of
yep,
trauma and how your body traps it, even on a
mm,
cellular level. And
yeah,
it is so important to work through this. For many years, Christy, I went through before I became, got my master's for counseling and stuff. When I first went back to college, I went to be a nurse because not
yep,
because I felt called to be a nurse. I went
mhm,
because I needed an income that I could support my kids with. But
yep,
I ended up learning a lot about the physiological aspects of the
mhm,
physical body, and the body keeps score. There's a
yep,
secular book called The Body Keeps Score. I believe you've read it. I think you
yes,
mentioned
ma'am,
it in the book, and it is super important for us to understand that what happens on a physical
yeah,
level. And do you know, it is so crazy that every time that I've gotten an emotional healing, it is
mhm,
followed by a physical
physical healing, yep,
healing.
yep,
And it's so beautiful that God does it like that. And many of you that have watched my broadcast, you know a lot about my story. I've dealt with a lot of chronic health issues,
mhm,
cancer, the whole nine yards. But the reality is that God wants us to heal inside out.
mhm,
And it doesn't look the way that, this cookie cutter thing that the world says that if you do A and if you do B and if you do C,
mhm,
that you're going to be all right. It's not a formula, it's a
right,
process. And it can be a messy process, just like
yes, it
grief.
is,
You could be cruising right along and all of a sudden it goes, and you start to,
mhm,
have a trigger. And triggers aren't always bad. Everybody's like, oh, I don't want to be triggered. Yeah, you do want to be triggered because you
yeah, you
want to
do,
find out what's still there and needs to be dealt
exactly,
with. So, we talk a lot about going back, a dog returned to its vomit, going back to Egypt,
mhm,
things like that.
mhm.
Did you find that whenever you were trying to break free from the mindsets and the traumas, the past hurts and all the things you were carrying? Did you feel like you were taking two steps forward, one step back sometime? Did you feel like you ever wanted to run back to Egypt?